Peace and blessings, y'all. This is your boy Juro. It is Tuesday, the 18th of October, 2016, the evening. Today, y'all, I've been having a lot of things run across my mind. Found out today that I've got a fracture in my hand that has been pre-existing for over 2 weeks. And been walking around with a fractured hand. Didn't know it. Felt the pain, saw the swelling, but I pressed forward. But pride is a foolish thing. I got a second opinion, and they put it in the splint. And currently, I have the splint off right now. I'm gonna wrap it right back up before I turn in. But I know at the end of the day, God's got me. This is all part of the journey. And you know, I don't have to tell you. I ain't got to tell nobody on this channel because I know that everybody that comes to this channel sooner or later, which is always the intended time because God's got something about him. Clarity always comes. And with that clarity, you always see a barrage of fear and self-doubt that causes you to second guess yourself. Let me tell you something. The more and more that you draw closer within yourself, pay homage to that little boy and that little girl that lives inside you, yeah, that's the real you, not the person that you portray yourself to be outside the world. Um, that's the person that you owe everything to. Is is that person you see in the reflection? That's what it's about. What matters most is the price that you're gonna pay for your legacy, not what you have in your pocket, not who you're sleeping with, not what your material assets are for. None of that matters. Is it good to have it? Sure, it is. These are the luxuries of life. These are the things that actually set the color of your experience, your life story. But I'm going to keep saying this until the intended person hears this. Maybe now or after I'm gone, and this is in the future. Maybe my great, 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 great ancestors will see that in their family tree there was someone that loved them so much that I chronicalized it so that you could find it. Why? Because you're worth it. That's right. That's the end goal should be one day to earn the right to have the title of elder. That is not something that's given overnight, and that is something that should not be taken for granted. Even though there was a day where there was a time where the title grandparents they looked like grandparents. But today's society, grandma is up in the club right with her daughter, right along her son. And the hierarchy is being questioned. But that's another discussion. The real reason why I'm putting this out is something different, a little deeper, but hits home. You ready? Let's talk about that stress that you're feeling right now with all the media exposure that you're getting, all the focus that you're seeing that is dominating what's going on, presidential election, as well as all the behavior that has been spawned up from it. I'm a firm believer that history always repeats itself. It just depends on if you're in the beginning of it to bear witness of its origin, or you're smart enough to notice the nuances when it occurs. And one of the things that have always concerned me was what is going on presently, or actually what's been going on since 1986. You said, why did I pick 1986? Because in 1986, that was technically the dawning of the dumbing down of society. That was the height of the crackademic, as well as the boom for young single mothers to be recognized in society. 1986 was also uh, a very climatic year because that was also when society even identified the fragmentation of the family structure. Because, see, you had a percentage that were being incarcerated, you had a percentage that were electing to live an alternate lifestyle, homosexuality. And on top of that, you also had the pandemic, as we know, still to this day, as HIV. But what's so ironic is where we were then, technology wise, compared to where we are, there hasn't been much change. There still is a fleecing of the populace. If anything, more and more people are dying young. It had gotten to a point that it was so rambunctious that the phrase YOLO was born. You only live once. Why not go out? Yeah, people that were glamorizing it. They were making songs about dying young. Don't you realize the only people that benefit from that are the people that never wanted you around to begin with? How about that devil? Because guess what? A life unclaimed is a challenge unanswered. Who am I talking to? So now, fast forward, it's 2016, and we're so divided. How is it in 2016 the things that were not mastered as a community are at the doorsteps of the next generation? I'm talking to you, millennials. And the sad thing about it is, even though you're tech savvy, you're not prepared for life. So we could actually throw in that cliche of the ant and the grasshopper. Guess what? Some of you are scholastically there, but have no common sense, have no means of self conservation and protection of your greatest asset, and that's your mind. So, what's going to end up happening? The days of the physical prostitution will end up becoming intellectual. And guess what? It's been there for the last 55 years. See, you can't look to change a community if you're not willing to take accountability to change yourself. But see, that's the problem. Most people don't see how precious that person in the mirror is. Some people are so inundated on the validation of other people than the people that matter most. And this is a sad thing. This is a sad truth. But guess what? Only you decide to put those track shoes and run from your life. The worst thing that you could do is make a conscious decision to run away from who you are. Because when you do that, guess what? You choose not to honor what matters most. That's the person you are. Stand by just 1 second, please. Ah, see, it's easy to sit up here and point a finger about they're not doing this, and he's not doing that, and she won't hear this. But, but why does that matter? What matters is what you do, what you're not doing. Because guess what? You know that opportunists, they're not going to walk with you and stand there and say, hey, you need to make corrections as needed. They're going to turn around and take advantage of what you lack. Now, so just throw this in the equation. If you don't see your value, what makes you think that they should? That's not their responsibility. So meanwhile, while we're trying to play Dr. Frankenstein by what we look like on the outside, why won't we turn around and do what we need in the inside? Why is that so hard to do? I made a point to quote what was it Soldier Boy Tell 'em had a lyric in this and Drake's Successful song. That's a classic song. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Drake because, which is sad, because of what the man looks like, what the man has attained. But here's the thing about it. At the end of the day, when he takes his last breath, he got to account for everything he's done on this planet, the things you've seen and the things you don't know about. That's why I'm a quick person to say, the soul's not for sale. But what happens? Most people that do not see their worth end up selling it to the lowest bidder. They end up cashing it in for a want and not a need. And what happens? It only lasts temporarily. What ends up happening? You end up manifesting into a voided person that's left holding the bag. Why? You're afraid to take accountability of your choices. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and play your father, but I know deep down inside, some of y'all need to have that conversation with your father. And when you decide to do that, guess what? All your fears and biases and pre- and perceptions, guess what? You'll come to find out that may be from your father. Because you do understand that half of you is of him. The other half is of your mom. So guess what? The half that you don't have a connection with is made up by your experience, your environment. So once again, if you don't like what you see in your world, why won't you take a step back? Assess who is in it, who has influence to you right now, and ask yourself, does that person deserve to hear me breathe? Be honest with yourself. Because guess what? There's a lot of people that can't. You would think, how is that possible that a person won't be honest with themselves? I kind of look at it like the domino effect. You know what happens when you stack up a bunch of dominoes and you just take one? It's a tipping point. All of them hit, right? It's the same way it's the same thing when you make your decisions. How about your disappointments? Look at that last disappointment you went through. No, seriously. Think about it. Think about that last setback you went through, right? Now look at your money. Did it represent the same way how you felt? But get this. Just as you focus on that last setback, you forgot about the one that was before that. You know why? Because he brought you through it. But a lot of times we take for granted the opportunities, which ain't nothing but blessings, that are afforded even when you don't deserve it. Why do you think God said, listen, I need faith of a mustard seed? You realize how small a mustard seed is? The size of a head of a pin. That's not nothing. But guess what? Still to this day, people want to hold on to the loyalty of their pain. Still today, people want to hold on to the perceptions that was based off of their bias. How about that denial? If you know it doesn't work, why are you there? Better yet, why are they there? What's keeping you loyal to your pain? Because you know there's such thing as pain addiction too. And you know what happens to people that are addicted to pain? They end up becoming what we know as masochists. You don't think they do S&M for a reason, right? It's all psychological. You do understand that, right? So is every addiction, even these. When you have the courage to look at whatever that fear is, you still have an opportunity to decide if you want to conquer it. Who am I talking to? Why are you living a life that's not yours? Hmm? Because of what she said? Maybe what she said was to get you to do what she wanted you to do in the process of not honoring yourself. Or you're acting this way because what he brings to the table? Are you serious? Why are you choosing to dumb down? Are you afraid of the challenge? Are you afraid to claim your life? Who convinced you not to love yourself? You do understand that is also the foundations of what makes generational curses, right? You do understand that, right? You know, fear. Finally, everything's a reality. The reality is you got to grow. Why do you think the pain is there? Pain serves as a motivation to let you know that there is something better. I know that needed to go out to someone. That's why you're fluttering right now, because I'm talking to your spirit. I'm also letting you know that you deserve better. So why are you listening to her? Why? Because y'all been buddies for over 20 plus years? Well, what happened in those 20 years that is so significant of the friendship, other than both of you getting older? You have a child, she has a child. She can't keep a relationship, and every relationship you get in ends before it starts. Why? Misery loves company. What's going to take for you to get up and claim your life back? That's for somebody. Now, someone asked me about my thoughts about the upcoming election. And I'm going to pick my words, and I'm going just to put it out there. Now, I voted for our beloved president both times. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed. But I'm more disappointed in myself. Because if you remember his re-election speech, actually when he ran, he told the world, do not expect a handout by your creed. It's going to take more time to do what I need to do. And he banged a gong, and we listened. But you know what? I knew I saw that before. I did, and I wasn't sure where I saw it before, but I had seen that movie before because, see, I'm a resident of the state of Virginia. And even though we had the United States made history by electing our first African American president, the state of Virginia elected their first African American governor. His name was Douglas Wilder. And I realized that the playbooks were the same. The words were different, but they were very both charismatic. But you know what I got out of that? Absolutely nothing. He did 2 terms too. Did he make the state better? No. No, he didn't. The jobs, everything he said, did not come into fruition. Now I can't compare both the elected officials and lump them together, but I can tell you what: if I know, if my voting is like going to a well, and every time I cast my vote, I get water out of it, and I've done this for 8 years, and going into the 8th year, there's nothing to draw from, then that should tell me that either I need to go to another well or I need to just accept the fact that there's nothing to pull from. Now, what I found very alarming is that, and peep this, millennials, because you need to take note. Right now, society is convincing you that the world owes you everything, and you don't have to work for it. And because you know how to stroke the keys of a laptop, your phone, or actually now that we're getting ready to actually embrace VR tech. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, if you look in your retail stores, you're gonna see VR headsets wherever you go. Why? Because that's gonna be the next money maker. That's why they're in the stores now. Why? Because they expect you to have them in your home this Christmas, and they're gonna reduce the price. And just like they did with the hoverboards, they will set the price so that in a town near you, in the city near you, in the state near you, little Johnny and Ray Ray can exploit that. But just keep in mind, even though they were feeling a certain kind of way, all they did was set up that doctor. All they did was set up those insurance premiums. All they did was make more money for those who had already previously invested. No different than uh, the proposal for the legalization of cannabis in the state of California. See, a lot of people think they're going to make a lot of money because November on the ballot they're voting to legalize it, and there has been mad push to invest. But see, what a lot of people don't realize is the real money. Those investors already made their bids 5 years ago. Yeah, and guess what? After after the government gets through taxing the hell out of it, um, there won't be anything left anyway. They'll just be more under control. But here's the thing: Usually with stocks, once it makes it to public consumption, there is no money to be made there. They've already moved on. That's why the wealthy stay wealthy. And people like you and I have to strategize. That's basic business 101. But actually, it's supply and demand. But see, as long as you stay inebriated, as long as you stay impaired, guess what? That beautiful mind, because see, the money is in investing in your perceptions. Because see, if I can control your mind, it's just a matter of time before I get your money. That's why advertisers make millions and millions of dollars every day. So, does it surprise you there is such a push at a younger generation to get you high, to get your health out of whack? Because guess what? Unfortunately, 20 years from now, some of you are going to be hooked up to a drip machine, a colostomy bag, carrying an air tank because of the choices that you're making now. That's why there's no benefit in rushing to get old, which is sad, Queen. These young women are growing up trying to play grown women games and don't know the rule of it. And by the time that you have strategized through the pain and disrespect of bad choices, you end up having to deal with the fact of infertility is a reality. This is real. This is the world that you're going to inherit when Generation Xers like myself are gone. And which is really scary, y'all, because we put more focus on fools running around in clown suits. But there's nothing to laugh at. Civil liberties and civil rights are being flip-flopped at the highest bidder, but no one talks about it. Why is that? I believe because the fact that it boils down to the one tried and true thing, and that is the identity of self. And if you don't know who you are, how can you know what to protect or where you're going? How about the people you break bread with? You might not realize, but the person that you share your deepest secrets with may be ready and willing to use them against you. And what have I always conveyed to each and every one of you? There's no benefit in holding a secret. The secrets are nothing but truth unrevealed, unspoken. Why? Because to have truth, you must have authenticity and the courage to define it. So, do you know who you are? Because if you did know who you are, you were protected with everything that you knew. Like the next air, the next breath that takes in your precious lungs. Because that's what's at stake. You would be cautious on the words that you speak. Because just like the words that come out of my mouth, I can't take them back. There is a responsibility as well as a cause and effect. But I like to believe in my heart, deep in my heart. It's sinking in. You don't have to do it for public opinion. You do it for you. See, a diamond can't shine until it goes through the process. And the process begins when it's at its roughest state, and that is a lump of coal. And in that process, there is time, pressure, and movement until the beholder realizes how precious what they have discovered. I hope you have the courage to discover who you really are. The worst thing you can do is sabotage your own direction. What about that dream? What about them God given talents that you have that you are willfully withholding from the world? Why are you doing that? Why? Because you're afraid to be unique? You're afraid to take the road less traveled? Don't you realize the road less traveled is your road? It's your life story. But see, I understand. There's some people, because of that generational curse, want to end up having the story and the template of those who have come before you. You think your life is supposed to be spending the rest of your days sitting on that front porch because that screen door is broken and you're just swatting flies and you're just watching cars go by? You think that's going to be the end all be all because she did it? Because he chose to do that? Well, guess what? Before they got to park that butt on that front stoop, somewhere along the way, they decided to check out of their own existence. Why? Because he broke your heart? He broke your heart? That was the best thing he could have done, because guess what? Now he done got the hell out of your way. But see, he can't break your heart unless you love yourself first. But just know this. God got something better for you. And what was always conveyed. Those who were made first will be made last, and those who made last will be made first. You know why? Because in the process, you're learning humility. In the process, you are learning and discovering who you really are. In the process, you are seeing your strengths compared to what was perceived as a weakness. Not everybody is supposed to hear you breathe. Not everybody is supposed to be able to walk with you. Not everybody is supposed to know your middle name. Why? Because not everybody's going to have your best interests. But trust and believe this. There'll be many people that will love nothing more than to hold you back by the easiest opportunity to distract you from looking from that little girl that lives inside you. How about forgiving yourself? You realize there are people on this planet that you made some choices, you did some deceptive stuff, you may have did some dirt, and that's been robbing you of your life. You know you might as well have been working for the devil, right? You do understand that, right? When all you had to do is have that conversation with him. It's not his responsibility to come to you. He created you. And when they say he has your blessings, damn right he does. They're locked away, waiting to see if you're prepared to receive it. Would you give $1 million to a fool? I know somebody's saying, well, Gerald, just look at the look at society today. A bunch of, well, listen, let me tell you something. If you can't see the value in $1, why are you going to see the value in $1 million? But what if I told you you're priceless? You're more than any amount of money ever could be printed. You have a brain that is unmatched, untested, and has endless possibilities. What's stopping you is your choice. The choice not to come back to that little girl that lives inside you or that little boy. You don't really think that because you throwing up 300 pounds, that makes you a man. Or you knocking them down because your stroke is good, that makes you a man. Or the money that you have and where you lay your head is a man. Let me tell you something. Monetary, physical possessions are like the seasons. They come and go. But if you don't know how to prepare for it, guess what? You won't know what to do to sustain it. I know that needed to go to somebody. But I'm going to shut my mouth. But I'm going to let you know something, y'all. Right now, they're doing everything in their power to get you to think a certain way. And for those who are going to vote, they want you to see that there are two. There are two candidates. There are actually four. Now, it's not my responsibility nor my business on who you decide to give your ballot to. But you will do yourself an injustice if you say, well, I'm not going out to vote, Gerald. Those are the only ones I don't like. Listen, you still got enough time to research your candidates and what they stand for. I know some of you say, well, that's like picking two of the less evils. What am I going to do? How about you pray on it? But I will say this. If you've seen the same thing, the same viewpoint for the last 8 years, what do you think another 4 is going to do? Why do you think people say if it's not broke, don't fix it? But see, I also know this. I got to call spade a spade on this one too, and I'm going to leave it alone. I know some of you are going with the intentions on voting because of your gender. You say, well, you know, that's a first. It's your voice, it's your vote. But you can't be a hypocrite if you don't like what you've been seeing. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And let me tell you something. There's gonna be a whole lot of people gonna be pissed off when the dust settles. So do the research. Vote with your conscience and not with your pride. Well, you already know what's going to happen. It's going to boil down to is that man, is that woman going to tell that man what to do? Or is society going to say, not today? We won't know until November 9th. God's praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth. And for that, it helps me discern my. You know what's sad? 2016, millennials, the lessons in life that you're seeing, you're going through the effects of what the baby boomers went through in the 50s. Because when you look at the parallels, they're the same. In the 50s and the 60s, segregation and racism was at an all-time high. What's going on in 2016? The mask of bigotry and hatred is there. Drug use was high. Pregnancies was high. Same in 2016. Only difference between the 50s and 60s and the 2000s is they didn't have HIV. But they did also have a high rate of abortions too. So I can't ignore that. I would love to know what you guys think. Like, share, but more importantly, I want to know what your opinion is. You guys have a blessed week. Peace.